Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Last week you may have seen Chris Eubank at the press conference for Bivol versus Baturviev, calling every promoter under the sun a scumbag, apart from Turkey Al Sheikh, and he gave Ben Shalom a little pat on the head as well. He's all right as well. But Turkey's the man with the money. He's the man paying the fighters. So Chris was like, "Yeah, you're lovely, and the rest of you are scumbags." It wasn't long, or an hour or so, since Frank Warren jumped on TalkSport and said he was going to sue Eubank. And then an hour or two after that, Eubank apologised. And Frank Warren also gave a very curious apology as well, said he accepted Chris's retraction of the statement. Kalle Sauerland and Frank Smith and Eddie Hearn haven't really said anything in interviews. They've just sort of laughed it off. But they could have sued Eubank. And a week later, it seems to have all been maybe not forgotten, but sort of shelved. Now, was this, I don't know whether he thought this as he was doing it, but a lot of people have said about the retraction, well, Eubank bottled it. I mean, Eddie Hearn said in an interview, I'll bet he's fuming because he had to apologise and everything. Well, actually, Eddie, not really, because he made the apology, Eubank this is, and it was accepted. And he's not getting sued. It won't cost him a penny. Everything's hunky-dory again. He's looking forward to his fight and everything. But what he said is still out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, the points he made, he accused Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith of knowing about Conor Benn failing his drug test and still went forward with wanting to put him in the ring with Eubank. And there's all sorts of he said, she said stuff. I don't have any inside information, but he also said things about Kalle Sauerland. He was locked into a terrible contract. And Frank Warren, he said he lied and cheated for the last however many decades, couple of decades or whatever. Look, I know he retracted it all, but it's still out there. He made his point, in other words. And legally, he's not in any trouble anymore because of the apology. But what he said is still out there. Now, it seems to me that he's played that game quite well because he said his piece, he got it off his chest. Warren had sued him for a couple of $100,000 for pulling out of a British title fight some years ago. Eubank is obviously still pretty annoyed about that, pretty salty, pretty bitter. But that, he actually, in a sense, he got his own back, even though it appears that he apologised. It got people thinking. And I think the important bit here is that even though we all enjoy the whole sort of soap opera that goes on within boxing, not just the fighters, but the promoters, like we had Eddie and Frank, the 5 versus 5, which was a fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that event. I thought it was brilliant. And they appear to be best buds now after many years of slagging each other off. Well, Eddie was just taking the piss, wasn't he? But Frank gets irate and turns into a big tomato for any reason, doesn't he? But now they're good mates. So that's a little bit of a turnaround. Then we got Turkey Al Sheikh coming in, chucking his money around. And you've got fighters that, talk a lot of trash and so on and so forth. Now, all of this is kind of fun, to watch from the outside. But at the same time, I don't think we should forget that promoters are only interested in one thing, and that's making money. And if, as a fighter, if you're not of use to them, making money, if you really don't, once you've served your purpose, it's time to put you out to pasture. And it's time for them, the promoters, to move on to someone else. There's nothing actually wrong in that. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a promoter put a fighter in who's shot to bits against a killer, looking to get destroyed. I mean, you're putting him in danger. So there is that to be said. And of course, promoters will carry on. They're promoters. They're not fighters. Fighters, like all athletes, the saying, they die the 2 deaths. They die the athletic death where they can't do what they used to do anymore. And then they die the death that we all do. And in that bit in the middle, they've got to somehow fill it with something else. And that's a very difficult thing for fighters to do. With promoters, they can carry on and on and on and on and on. Look, Mickey Duff was still promoting when he had the first signs of dementia. Warren's in his 70s. Hearn, I don't know whether he'll bail. What is he, mid-40s now, Hearn? So he's still a relatively young man. but they're not our friends, and they're not fighters' friends. And they can be friendly, and you can have a good business relationship, like you can do if you work in an office and your manager's a good guy or good woman. You get on well with them, you have a chat with them, but they're not your mates. And I think the important part of, if you push away all the bitterness that EUBANK was talking about and the fact that he has very personal gripes with these promoters, nevertheless, the basic point that he was making is that promoters are there for one thing, and that's to make money. And they should be making money for their fighters as well, of course. That's the business deal is, you get me the opportunities, I'll fight and I'll win. If you don't get me the opportunities, you're in the wrong. If I keep losing in the ring, why would you keep me on? Do you know what I mean? You've got to separate this idea of friendship from business. It's two very, very different things. And I think the point that EUBANK made still stands, even though he phrased it in a very sort of confrontational and slanderous way, and then he apologised later. The point he made is still there. It's still valid. So I think EUBANK comes out of this quietly, not smelling of roses, but he made his point and he's escaped litigation and he's kind of said his bit, and, people will remember. They'll go, oh, yeah, do you remember that point EUBANK made? Oh, remember when EUBANK called so-and-so a scumbag? It sticks around. It sticks around. So what do you think? You got any opinions on this? What do you think of promoters? Let me ask you that. I'm always interested to hear the views of, what do you think their, well, I'm not talking about their role, but what do you think? What do you think makes a good promoter? And what do you think makes a bad promoter? And it's more than just, obviously matching up competitive fights, competitive opponents is a main thing. But what do you think enables certain promoters to survive for so long in what is a very cutthroat game? Leave your opinions below, comments below. Yeah, thanks for your time as always. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button. We've got lots of videos for you. You're helping the channel out a great deal. And yeah, thank you. I will catch you later, and bye for now.